Hi, welcome to Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV. I'm Kenny Fogel. Glad you could join us this evening. We'll talk a little bit of art tonight, and that's something that some of us think we know a lot about. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we're going to find out tonight. We've got Jim Cantrell here with us. He's a well-known artist in the area, and his wife, Jeanette. And first of all, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start out with a real quick question before we get into everything else about art, because I always tell people, and this is my excuse why I'm not an artist. I say, is this something that you learn or acquire, or something that you basically have to be born a talent with? I mean, were you always an artist?
I've never been an artist.
Well, what are you then? I guess don't leave that up to somebody else to define.
I will explain it. I really don't know what art is about. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody does. And anybody who claims to, I look at, they don't know what they're talking about there. But I am a painter or a craftsman. Mm-hmm. Now, craftsman, most people know what a craftsman is. It's somebody who does things well. And I like to paint well. I used to be a potter. I like to make pots well. And I like to do the best I can. But when it comes to art, when I say I don't really know what art is about, I like to quote two artists in the late 1800s. A fellow by the name of Ruskin and a fellow by the name of James McNeill Whistler. And he painted his mother. But they were walking down this exhibition in England, and Ruskin would say, he was an art critic and a painter, he would say, that's a bad painting, that's a good painting, that's bad, that's good. And finally Whistler got tired of it. He said, Ruskin, those are two words you should not use, good and bad. You like it or you dislike it. In other words, and then he finished it up by saying, now let's go have a shot of whiskey. I'm sure you'll like that. I thought that would go over well in Bardstown. But art is, when you say artist, I automatically think of the interviews on Fox News or CNN where they got that couch and they got all these people and they bring an artist in, and he's got a big black hat. You notice he's got to have a black hat, and he wears it inside. And he's not a cowboy, and there's no sun in there, but he is an artist. And you talk about fellow artists, songwriters. They play guitars, and they have the music world has taken over the word artist. Now, if you really want to be accurate, you could say, well, I'm a visual artist. But that implies I'm better than because art, somehow or another, people have associated art with status. Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I'm more comfortable with and I can carry on a conversation with a carpenter or a cabinet maker, because they do things that are interesting. I would like to do, and do sometimes. But as far as, and I have a hard time, I can do it. That's why I married my wife. I take her to these openings and this, hoi polloi stuff where you put on a black suit and tie and drink.
Take your black hat with you.
No, I don't. I wear a hat, but not indoors. And you sit there and sip juleps or whatever it is they sip at those things. Wine, I guess, wine thing. And you're supposed to carry on an intellectual conversation. I'm not an intellectual. I have a hard time, and I'll usually say something off the wall or not academic, and they slowly work away from me. Now, I can do that, but I'm more comfortable sitting around and drinking a beer with the boys.
Well, when I think of artists, a lot of times I think of somebody that's more of unfettered, not really somebody that follows the guidelines or the rules and regulations, somebody that sort of goes to their own beat. I mean, and so in a way, I'm not saying you fit that criteria, but
I do. When it comes to the art world, I'll let my wife explain that.
Well, Jeanette, you've been. I know I'm not going to say his muse, but you've been the subject of many of his paintings several times. So obviously, you're involved very much.
I'm very much involved. I'm more of the left brain mode. I really am not. I don't like to admit that I'm more of the left brain. I like the right brain. which he definitely is. And because he's not much of a talker, I unfortunately got into the habit of somebody would ask him a question, and if he wasn't interested in the ongoing conversation around, I could tell he'd flipped off into the right brain mode. He wasn't listening. So I would answer basically for him. So I sort of became too much of a talker.
Well, the story I'm referring to is at the Speed Museum, which Jerry Samples had all these artists, these weird people,
The weird ones.
Yes, yes.
to gather around. I mean, people like you think, and I think of, those people. Anyway, she does it better than I do.
They were having a dinner. I believe she was either retiring or somebody was retiring. So we were at a dinner at what used to be Masterson's. And a group of the artists were all in their unusual attire. And one of them looked at Jim and said, "Boy, you are really staid. You are really conservative," or, whatever. And Jim said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I'm the only one that's the nonconformist in this group. Look around, you're all dressed alike."
Cowboy boots
And I'm the one
shorts.
that's, and the guy looked at him and said, "Oh, you're right."
That was the odd one out.
Well, and then nothing wrong with that. That's the story. You go to your own tune, and but again, I guess the original question basically is, can anybody have that type of brain? Because can I train my brain to be one of those that's not necessarily a visionary? Because when you look at a piece of canvas, I'm going to put something on there and it's going to look pretty good. I look at a piece of canvas and I'm going to do tic-tac-toe.
There have been people that think that you can train artists. And there's been studies now that's in the last 50 years. Lowenfeld was a pioneer, Victor Lowenfeld, in Pennsylvania, art education man, pioneered this. And he used the words haptic and visual minded. It's a brain thing. A visual minded person sees things and he can remember things. They're different. They're different people than the haptic. Now, haptic is now that computers have taken over the word haptic, and it means touch. Touch the screens or whatever. And there's another word which I don't remember what it is, but basically it was the person who was very verbal. Now there were two, and there's fewer of the visual-minded people out there than there are the verbal. I mean, look at the political world. They're all verbal. There are very few. They need more visual-minded politicians. But a visual-minded person will not last long in politics, won't even bother getting involved with it. I mean, if you want to get into that. Not just politics, but other things. They're not great speakers. They're very shy as a rule, effeminate, and some people say standoffish, but it's really not standoffish. We're just shy. And sometimes we compensate for that by being overly. But anyway, but basically if you think of visual and a haptic. Now a haptic is one, you can tell a haptic by give them a piece of paper, anybody, and say draw a table. Well, the haptic will draw a square and 4 legs. And he draws it as he knows it, if you want to think of it. He knows that the table is flat, it's got 4 legs. A visual-minded person will take that and say, draw a table, and he'll draw, in perspective, a rectangle and put the legs on it. And it's perspective is the key word there. They see things entirely different. And they're almost, you can be, to some degree, you have a photo memory. Robert Henry started this out. He was an artist teacher in the 1800s, who used to take his students, he'd tell them to go in and look at something, a model or still life in one room, and he'd say, study it, and I'll go back out and draw it to see how they memorize. I mean, I was taught when I was young, I thought that to be what you would call an artist, you had to be able to draw it without just by memory. And I did. It wasn't all that good, but I've learned since then to use technology. I use the camera, I use Photoshop, I use all kinds of stuff because it's there. And I've got to compete with technology today.
So when you're doing one of these paintings, and now I know Jeanette, you can tell us a little bit about this because you probably, like say, you probably had to pose for some of them a little bit. How long do they take? Is this something that, I mean, obviously not going to do this overnight.
He doesn't do it overnight, but what I've found over the years is that he will spend more time doing the research for what he wants to do. He spends more time building the props, much as a stage setting. He will make the costumes. And when it finally gets down into actually doing the painting,
that's the easy part.
compared to all the other time that he spent, maybe the painting takes a week. Or in a large painting, maybe 2 weeks. Now, this is where you have to think in terms of the fact that this is his job. So he paints all day. He doesn't, go 9 to 5 and then come home and paint a little at night. But the research and the pleasure of building the whole concept and the whole theme, I think is as pleasurable for him.
Well, that's where I say the imagination has got to come in. There's got to be some innovation because I'll be honest with you, I tried playing guitar several years ago, and after 20 minutes, I'm bored. I mean, that's just me. I just don't have the focus to keep doing that. And I'd always wondered that if I had the focus, would I have been good at it? Or was it just the fact that I wasn't good at it that I didn't have the focus?
Interest is a key to me. I think in education, if the teacher has the same interest as the students, there's magic. If they don't, you're not going to be able to teach.
Well, I know you were telling me the story a few days ago about teaching at a college level, and some of the students were just there simply to fill a hole in their scenario. And I mean, it's hard to teach a class like that.
It's impossible. I can't do it. No, I think the 2 levels that I taught everything from kindergarten to graduate school. That's another story. 7th grade and graduate students. Now stop and think about it. 7th graders are just discovering the world. They're sponges. They love to learn. And then when they get in high school, they get jaded. And then undergraduate, some. Graduate students are focused. This is what they want to do. And you can really I get excited when the students are excited. And if they're not excited, I'm just like talking to the wall. I mean, it's no fun. If I'm going to teach, which I gave up years and years ago, except for a little tidbit I'm doing right now. Where was I going? It's called senior moment.
Your interest.
I want the excitement that I have with a painting. I can have excitement with a painting. I want the excitement of this interchange of ideas and there's things, discovery. I discovered something today that I didn't know. And it's kind of weird, funny. Shellac. You know what shellac is? It's the female lac bug secretes a substance in India and Thailand.
Well, that's more than you. I knew what lac was.
They take this secretion and they dry it and they dissolve it in alcohol, and you have shellac.
Okay.
And it's used for a number of things. Fingernail polish. It's used for coating foods. But I've always known it as shellac, and I knew it was thin alcohol. You would dissolve it. But think about it. The female bug, the lac bug, is called she-lac. I mean, to me, that's
fascinating.
It is. Now, the average person will look at him and say, weird. It's little things like that I've told that story to a number of people, and I just think it's neat to discover that. At my age, discover how maybe I'm wrong. I never thought about that. Maybe I'm not.
I don't consider that. It just confuses you. You're always right. Now, like say a painting over there like what you've got here in the rooms right now, and I know we'll talk about that in just a second, but as Jeanette mentioned, you set up for those paintings ahead of time, so you pretty much know in your head before you start painting. You've got the picture already here before it
I
goes
have
to canvas.
a picture, but a basic idea. The fun to me is I'm creating when I'm putting these things all together, because you're moving things around and you need something white up here or something light value, so you go grab a cow skull and put up there. And that's where the abstract comes out. I mean, I was trained in an abstract school, but I was a realist. I mean, I fought it, but some of it rubbed off on me. And I put this thing all together. Now here's where Photoshop comes in. I will take a photograph of this, take the model, set it in the set that I build, the props and whatnot, take a photograph, put it in Photoshop, and then I'll start moving things around. Now, I think that's Photoshopping. I used to take black and white photographs, cut and paste.
Yeah.
But Photoshop, oh God, that's a fantastic tool. I use technology. I'm not opposed to technology.
Well, I know you talked earlier about whether some people liked things or didn't like things, what was good, what wasn't good. But obviously, you've got some art that other people think, and then maybe this is what other people think is how maybe it's more important. But I know I've been to some of the art shows, and I say, that is going and you auction off, and it'll go really well. Mm-hmm. And there's some other art that you think, that's pretty good, that it goes for nothing. I mean, I don't want to put a monetary value on art, but
I don't understand art. I mean, I do at a point, but I don't understand finance, the stock market, and all that stuff. And that's basically what you're dealing with there. It's money.
Yeah.
You're talking money.
Well, people put money value on art at some point, and as we mentioned earlier, art can do a lot of different things.
Is, I think, on the rarity, but I don't know, because that's not my bailiwick. Is I like to make things, and that's when it gets out of that realm, I'm lost.
But see, here's where my feeling is that when a piece of art is produced, it no longer belongs to the artist who made it. Because you come along, I come along, I look at it, we see things based on our experience, and we say, oh, that sort of either reminds you of something or it evokes some emotion in you that maybe he didn't even think about. And we have had people write papers on some of his work, and our mouths drop open like, well, would you ever have guessed that wasn't his idea in the beginning? I think works like that evoke something in people universally are the works that end up in art museums, that end up, as we say, passing the test of time, because it continues to be fresh. You continue to enjoy looking at it. Well,
what makes Picasso Picasso, I guess, is the question too. Why is Picasso better than Joe Smith out on the street that maybe has put a lot of work into it, it's got a lot of imagination, but just doesn't have that magic?
Because I think Picasso was in the right place at the right time. He was experimenting.
I can't say it on the air. He was not a nice person.
He was not.
He was a backstabbing,
abusive.
I don't like him.
I've never met him, so I'm not
I
sure.
don't either. I read a book about him, and he treated his models like dirt.
But he did have something.
Yeah, he had something.
He had
to be some spark there that made him
different.
Stand out from somebody. And now I've got a red barn. So a friend of mine painted a red barn setting a few years ago, gave it to me as a gift. I've got it hanging in my garage, but he thought it was so bad that he refused to sign it. I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen in my life, and I've got it hanging in, well, I know it's in my garage, but still it's where I see it every day. But what makes that piece of art different than something that is really everybody's going wow over? And I guess that's the little trigger we can't figure out. But
I can't figure it out. I just,
exactly.
like I said, I like to make things. When I get through with that painting, to me the fun is in the making. Painting it or whatever you want to call it. When I'm finished with it, put it in the storeroom, sell it, do what? Get it out of here.
On to the next one.
Yeah, on to the next
one. Now you got an art show coming up soon, or is that something pretty
this fall?
Small art show? This fall.
We are going to be celebrating our 44th year in Bardstown as his studio and the art gallery. And when we first started, and set up, and he left the teaching and said, well, let's try this in case it doesn't work, and maybe I can slip back into the teaching. And that was 44 years ago.
44 years.
This is kind of a preview of the sort of theme that he's working on for this particular show. Stumbled on something on Facebook called Steampunk. Steam as in steam engine. And he called me upstairs where his computer and studio is, and he said, look at this. And it was a whole series on steampunk corsets. And I'm telling you what, they were and are drop dead gorgeous. There was a leather one. I wanted one right then and there.
That's all we have eBay.
Incised leather and whatnot. And so he began sort of like, what is this? What is this? And it turns out that it's kind of a genre of an outgrowth of goth, Victorian, industrial.
Civil War reenactors. People want to dress up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call it.
I like it.
I never was a dress up. I know you are, but I never was a dress up person. I've been
To me, it's an adult's excuse for
Halloween.
costumes,
yeah.
because but the whole genre idea has to do with like the industrial machinery, the Victorian, age kind of period. So there will be a whole series.
Now, where are you going to do this at? Where will the show? At your studio?
At Bardstown Art Gallery on Stephen Foster.
Now, if somebody wants to come in Bardstown Art Gallery right now, what would they be able to see some of this stuff, or they need to wait till the show?
Oh no, they can see it.
Some of it. We got enough room for all of it. We got other things in there to try
Other
to
things.
market.
I mean, for instance, they can also see a whole series of watercolors. He doesn't limit himself. His forte is the figure. That's what he really loves to do, and this is another excuse to be able to paint people.
Drapery.
But
I love paint drapery.
landscape, this happens to be the Gentry building down on Stephen Foster, down by the Marathon gas station. There's just a whole variety of subject matter that he has explored over the years.
And yet to explore.
This, and I find it interesting how we made the conscious decision. We will don't get yourself into a syndrome where you have to try to figure out what to paint that might sell.
Yeah.
I said, I don't think you will not get great or good.
Yeah.
If you're always trying to figure out something to sell. Just paint what is inside of you, and we'll worry about the selling
big
part
Well,
later.
so far, it seems to be successful because everybody seems to has bought into your art. I mean, it's simply you've been
We
well
are
acclaimed by
very-
everybody I've talked to.
We're lucky. We're very, very blessed and lucky. As a matter of fact, earlier this spring, we delivered one of his architectural paintings. 72 inches by 52 inches, of the architectural glass buildings reflecting old architecture. Very abstract. The Columbus
very
Art
realistic.
Museum in Ohio is adding that to their collection. He is now in, I think it's 8 or 9 art museums around the country who have his work in their permanent collection. So that says to me, okay, I think you've got whatever that little spark of magic is that art museums want, plus whatever. I mean, there was a time when we could probably count on one hand the number of people in Bardstown that owned his work. And when Dixie Hibbs was the mayor, and Bardstown was celebrating their 225th birthday, she came to us and said, do you think there's 225 pieces of Jim's work that have remained in Bardstown? Of course, by then we've been around long enough, and I said, yeah, I think so. And she said, let's do a citywide exhibition focusing on that part of the culture of Bardstown.
Yeah.
And Jim immediately said, oh, I don't think so. And I said, oh,
That's why you don't ask him the questions. That's why
I
they can-
said, absolutely,
You got
let's do that. And so I told her, I said, if you will go to the merchants and see if, is it okay, would they be willing to, you know, put some of his work in their place? I will contact the patrons that I know own his work and see if they would be willing to loan. Well, she did, and I did, and it happened.
I was an educator for, I don't know if I did much education, for 15 years. I think that your life can be broken up into 15 periods or 15-year periods. Then you lose interest, or you gain it, or you conquer it, you move on. And then I was a potter for 15, 20 years, and I was a painter. I painted all along during this stuff.
Yeah.
But now I have a new love. It's shipbuilding.
Shipbuilding, model building.
shipbuilding.
Oh, well,
Of course, that's a
50
great subject to build
Yeah.
in Kentucky.
Yeah, we got a big Navy here, too. Well, we'll talk about that on our next show. But right now, we're talking your art gallery. Again, it's up on at the West Stephen Foster near the 5th Street intersection, where all the beautiful
Oh my God.
the overhead of stoplights are now. Some people call that gaudy, but that may be art. I don't know.
Oh.
Where they put over the intersection.
That's art.
That's art. It's art of some sort.
214 West Stephen Foster.
213 West Stephen Foster.
214.
214. Okay, well, it's to West Stephen Foster. Stop by and check it out. And again, this will be this fall, but I'm sure you'll have some information coming out between now and then.
Yes.
And we'll have it on here between now and then. Let us
Okay.
know. We'll make sure that everybody knows when it's going to be.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
And if somebody wants to come by and be a critic, I don't know what exactly that word is, but if somebody wants to come by and be a critic or just an art lover, they can and discuss a little bit of shipbuilding with you, then or maybe find out a little bit more about shellac. I mean, well, I do appreciate you all being on here today.
Thank
It's really
you,
been
thank you.
fascinating, and we'll do this again and bring in some more stuff maybe right before the art show, and we'll be able to do that.
Be
Well, thank
great.
you for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed
Thank you.
today's show. We'll be back with more Community Focus here on Channel 6 right after this.